All right, well, we know that Crystal Palace can be a thorn in many a side, but they were not today for Manchester City. Here's a look at the match stats, and undoubtedly, we will talk about what this could mean for the title race. If there still is one, guys, let's have a look at the Premier League standings now. City now still behind Arsenal, but this time just by 2 points. All right, let's bring in Jan Aga Fjørtoft for this one. Jan, Manchester City making a couple of rotations. As I said, Crystal Palace, I mean, they probably have their eyes on their European final to think about, but City won this one without any trouble, really.
And imagine when Crystal Palace is playing Arsenal and they make a rotation for their final. What do you think Manchester City will say then for the last game at Arsenal? So that's quite interesting. I wasn't surprised based on what Pep Guardiola has done before, but still, when you see the likes of Haaland or Cherki and everybody sitting on a bench, you're thinking, wow, do they dare to do this? But I mean, Pep Guardiola has done this for ages, and he's done the same thing again, and it paid out today. 3-0. Wow, it's the end of the season. It's unbelievable. I wish I get my Norwegian to lift the trophy anyway, so I don't care which team it will be. But it's great. I would like to see the battle all the way to the end, and it seems that we get that.
Seems like we could get that. Stevie, you were keeping a close eye on this one. What did you think of City?
Well, it's not a surprise that they beat Crystal Palace by 3. You know, Crystal Palace have been on the beach for a long time. They were safe a long time ago.
Yeah.
They're concentrating on Europe. And in a lot of ways, it's actually really sad that the last game of the season that'll probably be the one that really counts. Crystal Palace are going to have half a team out. And at the end of the day, nobody can complain about that.
Yeah.
Because every team, pretty much every team in the Premier League, at some stage has been rotating and playing half a team. So Manchester City can't really say too much about it. Nobody can. That's what happens these days. And unfortunately for the Premier League, on the last day of the season, it's kind of going to be ruined a little bit because it's going to be Palace reserves against Arsenal.
Alec, just looking at the remaining schedules, what are you saying?
It's the feeling that I shared with Stevie while we were watching the game. Arsenal couldn't possibly blow this.
This would be the biggest bottle job, wouldn't it?
They couldn't possibly, could they? It just, I mean, you look at that schedule and you say, all right, well, if you were to pick 2 teams to play against, if you were Arsenal this late in the season, you would say, well, Burnley, sure, why not? Give me that. And then half a team of Crystal Palace, or a quarter of a team of Crystal Palace, or whatever is left of Crystal Palace. and it feels like it's all so neatly wrapped up for Arsenal that, again, it's on them.
Yeah.
The only thing that I would say is that if you notice, the goal differential has now gone in the direction of Manchester City, has tipped over towards Manchester City. Does that apply a little bit of pressure on Arsenal? Because if indeed somehow they drop points, then it really is in the hands of Manchester City. Maybe. I just don't see the scenario, or it's hard to picture a scenario by which Arsenal are not able to get through these last 2 games, unless that pressure that we keep talking about is far too much for them and this team falls apart. That's the only way that I think this gets away from Arsenal.
Jan?
I would like to go back in the German Bundesliga. I just dropped out of my head now which year it was. But remember when Bayer Leverkusen had to go to Unterhaching. And they only had to beat Unterhaching in the last game of the season. And Unterhaching was like a part of Munich. It was a small suburb of, not even a suburb, it was a village close to Bayern Munich. And they lost. They lost. And after the game, the Unterhaching players went with bus to Bayern Munich, who won their game, and celebrating the championship with them. So it's still possible, Al. It's still possible because it's football. It's still possible. They would probably get those goals against Burnley, probably. But then they're going to play Crystal Palace second team. We've seen it before. We can see it again. But of course, it's advantage Arsenal. It's advantage that tight decision in the last game. It's against West Ham. It is also advantage Arsenal because, and that's important, because Manchester City played at Everton, totally dominated the first half, and then managed to concede 3 goals in 13 minutes and just somehow managed to get a point there. So I think that with the end of a season, over a season, the best team win, and it may be Arsenal, but not yet, Al.
Not yet.
Can Jan say Unterhaching again?
Actually, I wonder if Stevie can say it. Stevie, can you pronounce
I
Unterhaching?
can say it, Unterhaching.
Hey, all right.
Bundesliga, Stevie.
Wow, all right. Bringing it.
We Scots have got a, you know.
You do have that. You do have that. You know who looked like he had it back today too? Phil Foden. He looked like he had a really good game today, Stevie.
Do you know he had to have a good game today? Because that'll stick in the mind of Thomas Tuchel or whoever was at that game to watch him. Because Tuchel will be watching this guy.
Yeah.
He's got so much talent, it's frightening. And for him not to be at the World Cup seems crazy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, England have got 3-4 players that could fill that spot. So it was huge for him to actually show himself today. And if Thomas Tuchel thinks the second one's an assist as well, even better for Foden.
Yeah, and he did himself a world of good today.
Yeah, he did, but still, it's worrying time for the English football team because there is a lot of key players out of form. Phil Foden has been known, for some reason, maybe a reason we don't know, that he's not have a good season. There's Bellingham, Saka hasn't had a great season, getting a bit into form. But it's not a go when Phil Foden, we know his talent. He's been one of the most talented player England have had the last 3-4 years. But for England now, it's 30 days till the World Cup. It's not enough to have one good game against Crystal Palace and think you're going to win the World Cup. But it's good for the kid. He had some great actions today, and that assist he had there, I mean, that was brilliant. That will be in all kind of highlights of this season because that was a brilliant assist.
Stevie, if you were Thomas Tuchel, you are the manager of this panel, and it comes down to you having to pick between Phil Foden, who, as both of you have mentioned, hasn't been all that great, but seems to be having a little bit of a late revival, and Cole Palmer, who talk about somebody who has had an underwhelming season and hasn't really delivered on what we thought would be a great season for him. Which one would you take? Similar profile players. Who do you take to the World Cup?
Well, you know, I think if there's one thing that maybe was in Phil Foden's favour is the fact that he's not had a long, tough season, has he? I mean, we're going to go to a World Cup at the end of the season where everybody's going to complain about having had a long domestic season, regardless of what country you've been in, and not feeling fresh and sharp. So maybe that goes in Phil Foden's favour. But it's actually not that... It's not that easy an answer.
Nope.
Because neither of them have convinced anybody that they're anywhere close to being the players that we know they can or should be. So one of them's going to go.
Who's your pick?
Well, you're the manager.
I think right now I would maybe take Foden over Palmer.
All right.
You're the manager. You're the boss.
You're the manager.
You're the
boss.
gaffer.
You make the tough calls. Well, obviously, speaking of managers, Jan, Pep Guardiola, just judging by his 11 and the rotation, I'm pretty sure it had a lot to do with the fact that City have a final to play this weekend in the FA Cup final. If City do go on and beat Chelsea and win the FA Cup final, but they fall short in the title race and Arsenal win the Premier League, how do we judge their season?
So it's interesting. There's so many things that we need to judge on Manchester City at the moment. I'm at City or seeing their games more or less every week. I try to pick Pep's brain if he's going to stay or will he won't stay. I have no clue. What we'll do with Manchester City, I mean, there is a key game in Bournemouth and blah, blah, blah. We know all about that. I think that when you see the first part of the season, Arsenal were the clear better team. But I've been impressed what Pep has managed to get him back as close as he has with Arsenal. And we can say, although there have been some funny recruitments at Manchester City, they haven't hit the target by all of the recruitments, but somehow Pep has now managed to kind of get the team a bit younger, get him going. You have a Doku, you have a Semenyo, although he had a period of time where he wasn't that good and so on. Remember, he played more or less all the time without Rodri. He's been in there some games. Erling Haaland is still scoring his goals. Phil Foden hasn't been even there. Gvardiol, Diaz. So I think that is a decent season by Manchester City. And if they should end up now getting that trophy as well, I think they will consider themselves as a quite good season and think that they started a bit too late to get the Premier League, and they will be annoyed. They will be annoyed with some of the results, especially that Everton, when they were so close and they were in advantage, and we see how vulnerable that result will be for them.
If somebody had said the previous Christmas, you know, when City fell off the planet, somebody had said the following season you're going to win the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, you're going to push the winners and be a point behind them at the end of the season, I think everybody would go, really? How's that going to happen? So if you look at it from that point of view, it's actually been a really good season.
But City just a victim of their own success in this one, because we know okay good or just two domestic trophies that aren't the title or the Champions League isn't really City.
Yeah, right. And Stevie, when last Christmas or the Christmas before that, let me just go to that this past Christmas, City were not even in the competition with Arsenal at that point. It felt like Arsenal were going to run away with this, and now Manchester City does get help from Arsenal because they started collapsing, but then give credit to Manchester City in finding somehow, with all their issues, with all their concerns that they have defensively, how exposed they are in transition, how exposed they are at times in the midfield, how their possession is not nearly as clean as it has been in years past, and yet here they are with a chance. In my estimation, not a great chance, but with a chance nonetheless. So give them credit, because it felt like they were not even in the competition to begin with, certainly at the turn of the new year, and they've made it into a race. However, to your point, Alexis, the standard for Manchester City is much higher than that. And I don't think they have met that standard just yet. They may be on their way to getting back there.
All eyes on the title race. Does today's result change anything, do you think?
Not particularly, no. I think if you asked us before, which you did, Man City, I think it was going to be a comfortable result. You know, when you look at the fixtures there, it was always the Everton one was always going to be tough because of David Moyes and how he sets up his teams. A very good team. But Bournemouth and what they're fighting for this season, potentially Champions League, and the way they play, when they go on the counter-attack, they really go with pace and power. So I'm looking at that game thinking they could cause Man City problems. On the flip side of that, because they do play on the stretch, Man City could actually counter them as well. So that'd be an interesting game. For Arsenal, they've just got to do what they've been doing all season. We mentioned moments in the game. Some would say they got the rub of the green against West Ham. But I think the thing is, with Arsenal, we're constantly saying, have they got the leaders to take them over the line? And I think they've shown up until this point they have, because they've stayed in. Maybe some of the results they've not played as well as they'd like to play, but in terms of staying in the game and being in a position where they're favourites now, no one can say they're bottling it anymore. I said a couple of weeks Arsenal are not bottling it. It's just the fact that they wasn't playing well. They got a good game against Fulham. It sort of turned their fortunes, and then against West Ham.
They played well here as well, didn't they? They were unlucky.
They were unlucky here, yeah.
I think they were taking a lot from that performance, because since then they've done everything.
No, but I think with that performance, yes, there's bits that you can take from it, but ultimately they lost the game. And you know what it's like as a footballer. Confidence is so key. And maybe the Arsenal of last season, maybe the confidence would have drained from them a little bit, but it doesn't think like it has this season.
Because they did ride out that difficult period. You said going out of the domestic competitions, losing against Manchester City here as well. And regardless of how they played, they still had to overcome that hurdle, and they still had to come through what looked like it was going to be a decisive moment in their season, but actually has proved to be something that spurred them on.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the Carabao Cup game as well, I think that was one where they've got a little bit of a lesson, didn't they, from City? But the next time they played them, they definitely took something from it. And you could see even afterwards, there was murmurings out at the dressing room. They took it as a positive of how well they played here. And since then, they've had obviously the weekend, whatever way you look at it. I think it's a foul, and they've got the right result. Could have gone the other way, but it hasn't. And now I just feel the opportunity they've got, Burnley at home on a Monday night football, the atmosphere is going to be red hot. I think they've got the players, the capability of playing against a side that's already been relegated. Then you're playing Crystal Palace to have a cup final, a big European cup final a few days after that last day of the season. So things have not fallen in their favour. They deserve this. They deserve to get that to this point. So, and they've had to work so hard. And you can only imagine the emotion every time he's probably watching the game tonight. Mikel Arteta, seeing how they're playing, looking at the team beforehand, thinking, OK, we might have a chance here. But they are relentless, City. They keep keeping you honest, if you like, and they have done that so well. But I just feel right now, after Sunday, at being in that game, I just think this is Arsenal's this season.
Only a couple of games to go in this title race. And Phil Foden mentioned the 2012 season. It feels like we're talking about this a lot more as the season goes on. I think probably because they have that late game against Arsenal late in the season, as the title-winning side of 2012 did against Manchester United, who were their title rivals. And the fact that this one could go down to the final game of the season, could be decided on goal difference. It could come down to all these tiny margins. That's why it feels like there are those same parallels.
Yeah, I think it will go down to the last game of the season. I just remember that season where QPR at home, as everyone knows the famous Aguero goal. But everyone talks about nerves and confidence and all that sort of thing. And I just remember being in the dressing room before the game, and I could feel the tension. You know, normally you have leaders in the dressing room where you look to them, and if they're cool, it makes you feel better. At times in the dressing room, it wasn't like that. There was a nervy feeling. And that's why when we talk about can Man City catch Arsenal, I always
were you more like Arsenal in that situation?
We'd never won it before. We'd never won it before, and we was up against Sir Alex Ferguson, the great Man United team. And before the game, I remember looking to my right and Vincent Kompany, and he's normally just in the zone, but he was fidgeting. He was fidgeting. That's what I'm thinking. Is he nervous? And then the game played out. But before that, I had the whole thing of, am I starting? Because I started more than Zabaleta in the season in terms of right back. I got an injury, and then Zabaleta played, and Mancini was very superstitious and didn't want to change it. And I was thinking, when he's writing the names on the board, he's mad because you're looking when he does it to go down, and I'm thinking wait for the Richards. He used the second name, but he went Zabaleta. So I'm raging before the game. I'm thinking QPR. I want to be playing the biggest game in the history for years, and then I was sulking. I was sulking on the bench, thinking I want to be that. And not even that, the way the game went in terms of Mancini, when it got to 60, 70 minutes, it would always go to 5 at the back. But that game didn't pan out that way. It was, we scored, QPR scored, then they scored again. So he's going to put attacking players, not defending. So I'm on the bench just sulking. And then I was thinking about me, and I thought, it's not about me, it's about the team. Look at the effort for the whole season.
Took you a while.
I know, it did take me a while. Then Dzeko scored. And then you start to believe then. And you're thinking, who's a top player who can do something for you? And it could only be someone like Sergio Aguero. And that moment still, you know, I get nervous, I get shivers when I'm talking about it, because I never believed I would win a Premier League. Winning the FA Cup the season before was enough for me. I come through the academy, I missed out on the Youth Cup, got to the final, lost against Liverpool, but then to win an FA Cup, that was enough for my career. To win a Premier League, it was the best feeling ever. And that's why for Arsenal, the similarities are...
Mind games here, isn't it? As he's opening the
I feel like you should be in the dressing room. This should be that, you'd be in the dressing room pre-match.
Are you okay?
No, I'm still okay. I've just got over it now. And then Arsenal on one side are going through that, and there'll be things that they've had along the season where it gets you up, it gets you down. But even with the experienced players that we had, there was always nerves. And that's why if it goes down to last game of the season, anything can happen.
It's the same in every sport, isn't it? You know, you see even the greats, once pressure comes on them, do strange things.
Correct.
I remember thinking about, Rory McIlroy wanted the Masters so badly.
Yes.
And the first time, and he's hit a shot on 13 that was just so uncharacteristic of him. But that's what pressure does. And it's the same with the Premier League. You know, Arsenal want it, the manager wants it, desperation. Yes. And they feel like they climbed the mountain on the Sundays. So anything can still happen. But I'm sticking with it. I just think Arsenal have come this far now. But I love the speech. I love the mind games, and I fear you, Mike. And you're building it up beautifully to the end of the season.
Let's hope it goes to the last day of the season.
But the other thing was, in that lovely, beautiful story
all
was...
I said was, is it like 2012?
But the amazing thing was, he started Zabaleta, and do you know what he did in that game? He scored as well.
Just to insult everyone.
The manager got it right.
It's why Mike is celebrating in
Thierry
Holland.
Henry has sent a strong message to Mikel Arteta ahead of Arsenal's massive Premier League clash against Manchester City, and he didn't hold back. The Arsenal legend warned that talk is cheap unless it's backed up on the pitch, especially with such a defining test coming up this weekend. While the Gunners secured their place in the Champions League semi-finals after goalless draw against Sporting CP at the Emirates, Henry made it clear that the performance simply wasn't good enough. Yes, Arsenal got the job done, thanks to their 1-0 win in Lisbon, but managing just one shot on target at home raised serious concerns. And against a team like Manchester City, Henry believes that level just won't cut it. Now, all eyes turn to the Etihad Stadium, where Arsenal face the league leaders in what could be a title-defining showdown. Arteta's side currently holds a 6-point advantage, but City still have a game in hand, and recently beat Arsenal 2-0 in the Carabao Cup final. The stakes couldn't be higher. "I want to see that fire at the Etihad," Henry said on CBS Sports. "It's easy to talk, but go there, against Manchester City, and show what you're made of." Henry made it clear that while he believes in Arteta and the direction of the team, belief alone isn't enough. "I believe in what I see, I believe in him, in that fire. But when you say things like that, you have to deliver. And I didn't see it tonight." Despite his criticism, Henry acknowledged the significance of reaching the Champions League semi-finals, something that doesn't come around often. "We're through, and I'm very happy. A semi-final, it's huge. I never won it, but I did win the league. Now go to Manchester City and win. That's what I want to see. I believe in Mikel, yes, but show it." When asked how Arsenal should approach the game, Henry was blunt. "Not like tonight. Not like against Bournemouth, or Brighton away, or what I've seen at times this season." And when questioned whether the performance against Sporting would be enough to beat City, Henry laughed. "The Manchester City I've seen recently? They've won 4 in a row, and even Liverpool were in the mix. It could have been more." Still, Henry remains hopeful. In fact, he's been consistent in his belief since the start of the season. "I truly believe we can win the league this year. This is our biggest opportunity to prove, as a team, that we are capable." But for him, it all comes down to action, not words. "I'm sitting here in the studio, there's nothing I can do. But I've heard fire. Now I want to see that fire at the Etihad." One moment that stood out to Henry was Declan Rice's reaction at full time. Look at his face. Go back and watch it. A lot of players were smiling, but his expression. "I don't know. Maybe I need to talk to him to understand what he was thinking." This is a guy who just reached a Champions League semi-final. Henry made it clear, there's no negativity in celebrating the achievement, but expectations must remain high. "This is huge, congratulations. It doesn't happen often in our history, so of course I'm happy. But against City, I want the team to win, not settle for a draw. That's it." Arsenal head into the clash with just one win in their last 5 matches across all competitions, including a 2-1 defeat to Bournemouth in their most recent Premier League outing, a reminder that improvement is urgently needed if they want to make a true statement against City. The pressure, therefore, is not just about one match, it's about momentum, identity, and belief at the most critical stage of the season. Inside the Arsenal camp, there is a clear understanding that performances must match ambition. Arteta, speaking after the draw with Sporting, admitted that his team has to improve a lot, particularly in the final third, where their lack of creativity and cutting edge was evident. While defensive discipline has been a strength, the inability to control games and create consistent chances is beginning to raise questions at exactly the wrong time. That concern is echoed by pundits and former players across England, many of whom agree with Henry's assessment. The general feeling is that Arsenal have shown resilience, but not the dominance expected of a team aiming to win both the Premier League and compete deep into the Champions League. Declan Rice, however, has taken a different stance. The midfielder has brushed off external criticism, insisting that the squad remains fully focused and unaffected by outside noise. Internally, there is still strong belief that this group has what it takes to deliver in decisive moments. Rice's mentality reflects a dressing room that is trying to stay grounded, even as scrutiny intensifies. The upcoming clash with Manchester City is now being framed as more than just a top-of-the-table encounter. It's a defining test of Arsenal's maturity. City, with their experience and relentless consistency, represent the benchmark. Pep Guardiola's side are known for stepping up in exactly these moments, and their recent run of form only reinforces the scale of the challenge. For Arsenal, the narrative is clear: promise is no longer enough. After coming close in previous seasons, this is the point where they must prove they can handle pressure, respond to criticism, and deliver when it matters most. Supporters are divided. Some see this as the perfect opportunity to make a statement and silence doubters. Others share Henry's caution, worried that recent performances hint at vulnerabilities that City are more than capable of exploiting. What happens at the Etihad could shape the remainder of Arsenal's season. A strong performance, not just in result, but in attitude and intensity, would reinforce their title credentials and validate Arteta's project. A weak display, on the other hand, would only amplify doubts and hand momentum back to their closest rivals. In many ways, Henry's words have already done their job. They've sharpened the focus, raised the stakes, and set a clear expectation. Now, all that remains is for Arsenal to respond, not with words, but with a performance that proves they truly belong at the top.